dice. This is it. High fly ball into right field. She is gone. The grand salami.
Mickey and the Duke.
Welcome to Fed Up, the number one podcast dedicated exclusively to the Federal League. I'm your host, Josh Stoll. So excited to be back with you for another season. We're going to be bringing you brand new episodes every Wednesday throughout the year. Got a lot of great new ideas that I hope you'll enjoy. We've got some new guests lined up. We're going to do a mailbag feature where hopefully you guys are sending in some questions or topics for us to address throughout the season. Planning on doing a live show. Not even sure how that's going to work yet, but knowing the characters that we have in this league, literally anything can happen on that. Got some new sponsors that I plan to introduce you to. Want to share more about them, why they're important to the Federal League. Definitely looking forward to highlighting them on a regular basis. But first, to kick off this season, I thought I would remind myself the reasons why I started doing this in the first place. 4 main reasons come to mind. One, first and foremost, is to entertain. If I'm not having fun doing this, if you're not having fun listening to it, what's the point? We're going to stop it right there. So please keep your kind words of encouragement flowing. They really do mean a lot to me, the motivation to keep going and turning out new content. Second reason is to bring some exposure to our league. I really wholeheartedly believe that this is the best 35-plus league in the country. I think we're doing some really great things, from the content that Lars is cranking out to the website to the way we've structured the league, how popular it's become, how competitive it is. Really want to just spotlight our league and do what I can to highlight it, to help grow it, to make sure that it's around for years to come. Third reason, I want to build community. I want to bring you the stories of the league. I want to introduce you to the players of the league. A lot of the guys that we play with have done so many cool things in and around the game of baseball, and I want to connect you to those stories so that it goes just beyond lacing them up inside the chalk. You know, you might be able to build a connection, to share some stories with each other. Collectively, we're doing what we can to make this feel more like a community rather than just something that we do, 18 times a season. And I could use your help in this regard. My reach only goes so far. I only know, a finite number of players in the league. So if you've got ideas on who would be a great guest, who's got some great stories to tell, who would be entertaining to listen to for 30, 45 minutes, please share that with me. Send me a direct message on X, shoot me an email. Would love to hear from you and your ideas. Finally, the fourth reason is to inform. We're going to do a lot of that on this episode, bringing you things like rule changes, division realignment, keeping you in the know, and giving you a little bit of insight, on the board and their decisions, why they're deciding the things that they're deciding. I think transparency and innovation are just 2 hallmarks of a great league. And I think this platform allows us a great chance to be able to do both. On that note, our first episode of the season is going to once again feature the rule changes, some of the off-season ongoings that happened since the last Federal League playoffs. Every year, the Fed does a spring meeting where each of the managers will hop on and vote on new rule changes. Now, I know that everybody gets a chance to be on that call, so would love to just bring a little bit of that call to you so that you have a good expectation of what the 2025 season will look like and how it will differ from the 2024 season. Our first guest is going to be somebody that I think can really bring the noise and help spice up some of those dry topics like rule changes. Let's go ahead and not waste any time and bring him on.
Batter up.
Well, season 2, episode 1, we've got to tackle some of the dry stuff, rule changes, division realignments. It gets a little wry, and to do that with excitement and energy that a season debut requires, I had to bring in the big guns, and that's why our first guest is the one, the only, the head hurricane, Mr. Nick Tuckner. Nick, welcome back to Fed Up.
Dolly, thank you so much. Thanks for having me back on. I'm glad to lead off the season. Let's get the jargon and baloney out of the way here in the first one, and then let's have some fun. Let's play some baseball, buddy.
I love it. We are getting closer. Spring is around the corner. Even though we got a fresh batch of snow this week, the nicer weather is coming. I'm encouraged about that, and starting the episodes of the podcast is definitely a step towards getting back on the diamond. So glad to have you.
Absolutely, buddy. Yeah, I mean, it's kind of weird. We're stuck between hockey and baseball, and yeah, the snow made it a little more of a headache than anything. But hey, we'll be outside. Anything that falls, even if it's snow right now, is only going to help our fields anyway. If we want to look at it from a meteorological perspective, Stoli, I mean, I think that anything we get right now is only going to help us when we get the summer, because we knew, as like we saw a couple summers ago, when it gets really dry and gross, it's not fun to play. And yeah, so you know what I mean. We'll just hopefully have a good summer of weather, and it all starts here pretty soon, because it looks like we got games scheduled, maybe end of April, start of May. So it's going to be a lot of fun, man.
League opener just a few weeks away. Well, one of our we'll call them responsibilities of the podcast is to inform. I started the kickoff of the show here as part of our responsibilities is to keep the players of the league abreast on some of the changes. So we gotta tackle that. I know you were on the league's spring meeting that we just had about a month ago now. There's about 800 some players that aren't on that call, and would love to have you on to talk about just how that call went down. What are some of the rule changes this year, and bring that call to those who weren't able to join it. I'm sure their managers are bringing them snippets, but we're going to cover it in a little bit more depth. So, starting with some of the rule changes for 2025, the one I'm most excited about, I think, is expanding that AAA to 10 teams. I think if you looked at the top teams in the AA last year, there were some teams that really fought hard to get in. I would say fully belonged in, the Minnetonka Lakers, when you're looking at Burnsville, the Apple Valley A's. There's some really good teams, South Metro, that didn't get a chance to compete for that top prize. I think expanding that out, shrinking the divisions back down to 3 divisions, will add more wild cards to the mix. Winning the division isn't as paramount as it was a season ago. So talk to me a little bit about your thoughts on that rule change.
I think this is fantastic for the league. I think it's great for our highest tournament too, whether the Hurricanes are in it or not. It was just a unbelievable honor to make it there in our first year. And the one thing that really I think tugged at all of our hearts was we had a really good Burnsville team that we had to finish a game with because of Mother Nature, played game 2 immediately after that. And then, that determined who was going to, win our conference and move on to AAA. And it shouldn't come down to just that, I think. I mean, honestly, knowing so many great guys that play on that team too, and how awesome they were when our guys poured stuff on me. I mean, it was a celebration for our guys, and they appreciated it. And the guys from Burnsville, all stuck around. They thought it was awesome, and I was bummed that those guys couldn't come with us too, or be there right next to us anyway. And yeah, I mean, Burnsville is a classic example of that. I thought those guys deserved to be there. And man, I mean, to have it come down to really 3 hours of baseball is all it was. And that's what determined the season. Hopefully this type of, extended bracket will help with some of those teams that are right on the cusp of being there. I mean, there might be a couple of teams that lost games, Stoli, that, it was a weekend where, there's some sort of, town festival, or a bunch of the kids are at traveling baseball. This is my first year of being a part of a traveling baseball program, as Stoli with Dallas finally, getting his first crack at traveling stuff. And I know I'm not going to be there some weekends. There's tournaments, there's things like that where, yeah, I'm the manager, but it's going to have to be the fellas running the thing. But there might be 5, 6, 7 guys that all can't be there. We schedule these games, back in, March, April, February for some of us too, trying to. And we do that on purpose to make sure we have field availability. But what we can never guarantee is player availability. And I think that teams run into that, and there could be a couple of losses. And I'm not trying to take away from, losses that any team might have had, but it happens. You have a core of your team gone for a weekend. It's a Saturday, Sunday. There are 2 conference games. You lose them both. That cost you a chance at AAA. Hey, I'm all for this. More baseball. the better for me. So I think this is great for us, Stoli, for all the teams, whether you're a perennial AAA powerhouse or you're one of those teams just trying to make your way to your first tournament.
I couldn't agree more. Burnsville, don't have too much sympathy for them. They've certainly been on their fair share of the right side of those champagne
Oh, I
celebrations.
forgot about that.
I remember 2 years ago they edged us out for a division championship, and we had to watch that champagne bath. And it comes and it goes, certainly, but I feel like we're taking a page right out of Major League Baseball's playbook here. They've expanded their playoff format. They've wanted to include more teams, get more cities, involved in some of that playoff fever, down the wire. And I think I agree with you, that expanding the AAA, making that top premier bracket the one to watch, including more teams in there, be fun to see, one of those teams that maybe just eke in, as a 9 or a 10. Maybe it is a team that struggled getting guys there during the regular season, but they show up and, in full force for the playoffs. As you know, so much of this league is who can you get there and when. Teams certainly seem to show up for the postseason, so I think it's going to be great, including everybody who really deserves to be there. Another one of the rule changes, we'll call this one a failed one. So the league electing once again to allow the South to continue to use those Rawlings balls. Everybody else will use the diamond D1s. So not a standardized league ball yet, but feel free to weigh in on that.
Well, from a player's perspective, not one that plays all the time, but, as a player, I love diamond baseballs. I always have loved them. Back when I coached Legion here in Hastings, diamonds were our preferred baseball back then. They were fantastic. They held up better. They played harder. Does that make sense, Stoli? I mean, they played harder all game. It seemed like instead of, we play 7 innings, your ball should not go to where by the 5th inning. And I just feel, and I'm not knocking Rawlings. Don't come after me if you want to sponsor the Hurricanes. But their baseballs, I just don't believe in them. Last year, what we did, because we were the new guys, we wanted to accommodate everybody, right? So if you guys played with a diamond baseball, hey, we got a few boxes of diamonds. Hey, we got a couple of boxes of Rawlings. Whatever you guys want to play with, we want to be the good host. Let's rock and roll. We would go that route, and I can tell you right now, 10 times out of 10, you ask all of our guys, they're going to say diamonds. Those Rawlings baseballs, I'm sorry, they're just nothing short of garbage.
Yeah, I'm inclined to agree with you here again. Obviously so many of our decisions are, brought down to, dollars and cents. We all face very real budget constraints. So certainly glad that the teams that want to go with the Rawlings baseball still can, and that will fit into their budgets, their plans. But glad that we didn't elect to standardize on that Rawlings league wide.
Yeah, not yet. I mean, there has to be more discussion, I think, not just with, the managers, but I think players, like Lars has done those player surveys and whatnot in the past, in the off season. I think that should be something that we go ahead and poll. Which baseball do you like to play with? And let's put it to the players. Let's put it to the guys who use those things every time they hit the field in this league. And then let's talk about it again next year.
Yeah, we've got such a great format to be able to reach out to the players and grab that information. Maybe we'll talk a little bit about later that player poll that Lars conducted. Tons of great feedback. He just took 100 responses, but a lot of great feedback on there in terms of not only who teams thought would be who players thought would be the cream of the crop, in terms of each division, but also fun little nuggets like MVP and so I enjoyed that, but a lot of great feedback on there as well on how you would improve the Federal League. We'd love to get into some of that with you.
I think that that's really important, and I love that about the Federal League is that we all seemingly do have input, and we have a board, we have directors as well that we can go to start the process, kind of a liaison to the actual board and kind of get things moving. And I, maybe if there's a recommendation or something that, one of us managers might throw out there that might seem goofy, it's nice to have a guy like, Paul Jack that will say, Tuck, man, I don't think, maybe that's not the way we should do. You know what I mean? It really
Yeah.
is a great liaison between, what we have in our leagues or conferences and the actual board itself.
So much of that experience, I agree with you that, we need ideas, we need fresh ideas, we need, even if there's something that we cook up in our brains and it makes sense, at the time, we bring it up to just somebody who's been there and done that. And, somebody experienced, like Paul Jess, we tried that years ago, but it didn't really work. There's a voice of reason that can kind of be in there. But at the same time, it's never a good answer. This is the way we've always done things. So we're going to continue to do it. Right. So we've got, I think, a good young crop of players who are and managers who are bringing fresh ideas and revisiting things that maybe, weren't right, 15, 20 years ago, but, maybe right now. But yeah, I agree. It's a great checks and balances, and we need those fresh ideas to be able to, stay on the cutting edge of being a competitive, one of the best talented, well organized leagues in the country.
And that's what we have been. And I just hope that 35 plus baseball continues to grow too, Stoli. I mean, I think that, even something like what we did last year kind of shows little groups of people in different towns that, hey, you guys can do it too. It might not necessarily be in the Federal League. It might be in one of the different leagues around the area. It might be in a new league. Who knows? But I love it, man, because we can keep growing our game in so many ways, and by having proper dialogue between the players, the managers, and the boards. This is only going to continue to get better, buddy. And this is only year 2 for me with this team. Of course, year 5 after 3 with Mammoth, and I've had so much fun because everybody in this league genuinely cares not just about their team but everybody else's team too. I mean, I know we do get a little bit goofy on social media with each other, but I think that's part of the showmanship of everything. But for all intents and purposes, I think that we're all in this for the best, the best interest of the game, and that includes everybody that starts a team or has a rich tradition, and we got a lot of those teams in the Fed. So I'm really, again, looking forward to seeing what we're able to do with all the ideas we get from our players, managers, and even fans that come out and enjoy our games too.
Another one of the rule changes that did get approved, and I think it'll be a footnote. I don't think it's a massive change. It definitely won't affect gameplay, but now managers have a responsibility to report ejections. So when there's an umpire that were to make an ejection, whether it be of a player or a manager, both managers now have a responsibility to report that to the commissioner. As we know by rule, there's a 1-game suspension that follows any ejection. So just bringing a little bit more visibility, to the commissioner's office around that, making sure that we're enforcing some of those suspensions. I think there's some strategy in terms of getting ejected. Like, we see Guardy all the time, firing up his boys, arguing balls and strikes. So maybe not every ejection is this really catastrophic, meltdown of emotions. But nonetheless, it's going to come with an extra game suspension on top. But just weigh in a little bit on what you feel about that rule and how you think it might impact the league season.
I think more than anything, it's just more transparency. And I think that's good. I mean, between the players, the honor system that we had previously with, if you get ejected, that, you sit out another game, who's policing that? You have different umpires from game to game. The odds that you'd have the same umpire are slim to nil right now. I mean, in that happening. So who polices that? And the odds that you'd play the same team back to back are very slim to none also. So who's policing that? It just opens up another line of transparency, I think, with saying, hey, look, this did happen. So-and-so is out next game, and we're just reporting it. It's an easy thing to do. Send a text, an email, a phone call, whatever we got to do to make sure that we're kosher with all the rules. And that's it. The player sits, or the manager, whoever was the knothead that gets kicked out of the game, will have to serve the penalty. I mean, and that's not fun, especially when you're playing, a 20-game season. So do you want to give up a game for, blowing up for no reason and something you'd probably laugh about otherwise in the parking lot over a couple bush lights? Probably don't want to do it, So, I mean, if it's something stupid, then I'll be the first to admit I've I've had stupid things happen when I'm on the field. People have probably seen or made fun of me for doing stupid stuff sometimes, and that's fine. But, if you're going to do something as stupid as get kicked out of a game, then you should serve the stupid penalty and sit out a game too. But it's transparency. That's all I think it is, Stoli, and I like it.
Yeah, once again, in alignment, I think on that. There may be, hand plucked cases that maybe didn't warrant a suspension. Maybe the umpire lost their cool and they, were responsible for de-escalating a situation, and they in fact were the ones that cranked up the heat on it. So would I love to see, an additional review period maybe of each suspension? Maybe, but the rules are what the rules are. In terms of if you get kicked out, you got to serve that game suspension, and this allows us to bring some, like you said, transparency and enforce that rule. Part of one of the major feedback portions of that player pool I referenced earlier that Lars conducted was the division realignment. I feel like a lot of people dropped the same comment about go back to the way it was in 2022. So for the 2025 season, we are looking at three divisions. They're going to have roughly, 10, 11 teams in each. I know the board really went to great lengths to consider geography, travel distance, some of the rivalries that are in existence, and then also, competitive balance. But that can be a wild card in and of itself. Teams tooling up and shifting and players bouncing from one group to another. Competitive balance is an ever shifting target. But just weigh in a little bit on the division realignment. What excites you about your division this season? And how do you feel the board did in terms of cranking out, what we're looking at to shape this season?
I thought personally, from a Hurricanes perspective in Hastings, it was great just geographically. We have a lot of similar teams that also play against the Hastings Hawks in the amateur ranks in the NBA. So what we were going to try to do early on in the season, I know we did it a little bit last year, was have a lot of double headers on those Sundays. The Hawks play at 2, and then we'll play right away afterwards, right around 5 o'clock, because it really has become kind of a community fun night. Last year we had a couple of awesome double headers that we really had a lot of fun with, and we're going to have more than a few this year. And we're going to be playing one, I think, at Elko and at Newmarket. Also another one, I think it might be Northfield too, after a Knights game. So we're going to have a lot of opportunities to kind of double up with some of our friends throughout our area. So having some of those rivalries still within, the old South that we had previously, and now adding teams, you get like the Lonsdales of the world that this is going to be so much fun because those guys too, have rich, rivalry and traditions with all those teams down 19, all the teams down 50 and 61. So for us, it's a natural fit to have, those guys coming in here, as well as, the Hastings Lakeville thing. I mean, last year, some goofiness, some fun, some great baseball games, and, some chatter came out of all that fun stuff. And I know we chirp at each other all the time on the field, but I have a hell of a lot of respect for Tori and Nick and Lars. Like a lot of those guys, they could think what they want on the field and whatnot, but, I have a lot of respect for those guys off the field too. And I'm really excited to have those guys because they add an added dimension. And of course, this year we're going to have Lakeville here in Hastings for that festival night, like we played the Mammoth in a non-conference last year. This year it's going to be, who knows what it's going to be for at the end of the season. Right there, Star Rivertown days. It's going to be the Hurricanes Lobos, 5 o'clock, early start, Friday night, festival weekend. Beer's going to be flowing. I mean, it was so fun last year with our non-conference game. We had it on local cable TV. We're going to do that again this year. So, I mean, if you guys, on YouTube, Hastings Community Television with us and the Lobos towards the end of the season, hopefully playing for some sort of playoff, spots or whatever it might be. So I love having them there. I love our side. looking around the league, same thing. I mean, geographically, I like how things shake up.
I was able to catch a few innings of that Mammoth game that you guys brought on your local TV last year. A really cool experience, great production value. My hat's off to you. I think you're a great marketer and a great mind for our league. What a unique opportunity some of those Southern League teams have to kind of parlay some of the success and popularity of NBA and play a game right afterwards. They're sticking around, they're doing their beer thing, they're maybe casually looking in on a couple innings. Hey, this baseball isn't that bad. These old guys can play a little bit. So great opportunity to highlight our league and kind of ride the coattails a little bit of some of NBA's success and just provide that natural pipeline, for guys who, phase out of the NBA and are looking for a place to play. And, they're now going to be a little bit more familiar with our brand of baseball and, places like Northfield and Milltown, that are able to do that. I think that's a great idea.
I think what was a classic example now is what we just did this year in bringing 3 kids that, I say kids, but they're way younger than me. They were kids to me because I covered them on the radio back when they were in high school. Now they all turned 35 together. They're all Hastings High School graduates. They're all done with their town ball career, or maybe still, sub in on the bench for the Hawks or Cannon Falls here or there, Hampton maybe. But all 3 guys, former Hastings High School players, all played together, man the infield all together for 3 straight years from their sophomore through their senior year. So that pipeline stuff, that's very real. And if you can, like my dad told me a long time ago, God bless him, because if it wasn't for him saying, you can do this too. You can do this. You have the guys to do it. You have the drive to do it. Now just go do it. Nobody else is going to do it. You need to go do it. And I just hope so many more people that love baseball give it an opportunity, man, because we're just one of those examples. Pipeline, it really can happen, and now we have that established with our guys that played at Hastings High School that I covered on the radio, and now it becomes full circle, and we share a bench together. So pretty cool.
That passing of the torch to the next generation, I am very grateful for, the great minds that, the Galkies, and there's another great man who has recently passed. But the people who have done the things that provided the opportunity for us to play now, Ron Catone, among others, some of them still playing, Joe Prezell, Larry Gessler, some of those guys still active in the Federal League, but so many of them, Dan Tupper being another, who have worked so hard to create a structure that we are able to now add to. We don't have to recreate the wheel. We're able to, as new players, we're able to build on some of the things that they've done to put the league structure in place. And I, for one, am eternally grateful for that.
All the veterans. I mean, we owe them a debt of gratitude, and that's why we have our, big Hall of Fame and All-Star celebration to honor all those that came before us that still might even be on the field that'll be honored too. And I've been able to play with and against, more than a few of those guys in the last 5 years. And every time I get a chance to share a field with any of them, I mean, I just think of the goofy conversations, that I would have with Jimmy Block, man. I mean, gosh,
Yes.
the goofy. I mean, I coached third on purpose just to hear what Jimmy had to shout out to me, and I have to throw a couple words back at him, and we just sit and laugh and giggle. But he's one of those guys that I know, and just talking to my dad, my uncles, my grandpa for that matter, and I hate to say it, Jimmy, but they all know who he is. They all grew up in Highland Park. They all grew up in St. Paul. They all grew up playing baseball up there. And, he was just one of those guys that, old sage, savvy veteran. And, it was always a pleasure to just, play those guys twice when I got a chance to play with a Mammoth, because I could just sit and listen to Jimmy, say whatever Jimmy's saying, and I can listen to it for hours on end. So he's just one example of some of those guys that when you get a chance to share a field with them, if you do, before they hang up the cleats, because I know Jimmy just did, and that breaks my heart. I mean, it really does. And those guys that are still around, make sure you give them an extra tap on the cleat when you do see them, and let them know that you appreciate what they've done for us to be able to, blaze that trail for us to continue to play baseball. As I sit here at 44 years old, broken down, but 44 years old and still being able to play baseball.
Yes, we will definitely miss Jim Block. Obviously he's still playing. He's doing some 50s and 60s baseball, so hopefully he's able to do that for the foreseeable future. But yes, we will definitely miss him in Federal League circles this year. It's a great segue, though. Another one of our responsibilities on that league call was to review the season calendar. So the opener coming up, it's April 23rd is the first day that league games can be played. I'd be remiss if I didn't mention for CT Harris that all teams' league dues are
Yes.
due by that opening day on 4/23. So you got about 3 more weeks to get those checks into him. He's got a new address in Woodbury, so make sure you double check that envelope. Get those league dues in. Beyond the league opener date, we've got a couple of other dates of note. One of them you've alluded to a little bit, that All-Star / Hall of Fame game. That is set for June 28th. That is going to be back at Chaska. Last year we wanted to give them the opportunity to host. Obviously, with some of the flooding and everything that went on, it wasn't to be. Milltown did a great job of stepping in and hosting in Dundas. So that was a great experience. But great moment for the league to be able to highlight some of those players from years past. And then play some baseball on that day as well.
It's a great time, I think, for anybody. I mean, anybody that's played an all-star game in any of your leagues, growing up, whether it's, a 12U tournament all-series team and you get to, play in something fun like that, or, if you played in, any of these awesome all-star games we see. Classic Cannon Valley League for years had a great all-star game that was always fun. They'd play at Meesville or Red Wing or Cannon Falls, and it was always just cool. I know in the old Tech Mabel, I played at the Coyotes for many years with Schmitty, and I was lucky enough to go to 3 All-Star games, and I don't think it was because I played well. I think it was because the guys would enjoy my camaraderie on the bench, to say the least. So it was a lot of fun just to be there, to be with a bunch of guys who love the game, and a lot of guys who are very good at playing the game. And you see a lot of those Hall of Fame type guys that might be in the Hall of Fame, soon. And you absorb as much as you can. I know not being able to play anymore with guys like Kenny Wangler and Tommy Jenrick and some of those guys that I absolutely adore and love. And they're like big brothers to me, to go to something where they would be maybe and be able to sit next to them and just absorb any little bit that I don't get to take in anymore on the bench. Those 2 guys, whether it was hitting, I'd go sit and talk to Tommy. If it was pitching, I'd have to go run to Kenny and talk to him, and they were my sage veterans, and those types of guys are at those all-star games, whether they're in the bench or on the field playing, or they're in the crowd. It's fun to be able to have a day to celebrate those guys, and then for us to have some of our, guys from our teams go and represent, show some of the wily old veterans what we got now, and that we're fun. Even this purple and gold team down in Hastings, we got some fun, silly dudes that just love baseball, and of course going to Chaska, it's going to be great. I love Chaska. It was one of the fields that we had our actual state tournament at a couple of years ago, and we were lucky enough to win it with the Mammoth. The place holds a lot of special places in my heart. Got to know Dick Jonkowski, the Gopher announcer for years, at games at Chaska years ago. And we've carried that relationship on through when I was working in, high school sports and in radio. And now he's still once in a while doing some of those town ball games out at Chaska too. But no, I love Chaska. You guys watching, listening right now, you guys all know that's one of the meccas of baseball here in Minnesota. And I can't wait for the end of June and go have some fun, whether it's on the field in the crowd or, razzing up one or two of my Hurricane teammates that are out there.
And it equals out, but for an event like that, I know there's some back and forth. Do you guys want to give up a weekend, a family day to go out and play on a day that isn't going to count in the standings. But, I think the more teams that prioritize it, the more guys that prioritize it, the more special it becomes. It really is a nice honor to be able to, send a couple of your guys to an event like that. You can recognize them for the play on the field. You can, recognize them for what they do for your culture. There's a number of different reasons why you might send somebody to an event like that, but really is a cool honor and a cool experience. I know our guys who have been come back and just glow about the time that they had. So I hope everybody listening, really does prioritize that day and they see it for the honor that it really is. Shortly after that Hall of Fame game, we'll get another date on the calendar. It's the roster deadline. Those rosters lock on June 30th. Make sure anyone who is going to be on your postseason roster is on your website roster by June 30th. That's an important league date. And as long as we're talking about the new website, have you had a chance to play around on it a little bit?
From what I can tell already, it's going to be a lot more, I don't want to say user friendly as much as it's going to be visitor friendly. I think for fans, for teams themselves maybe looking to go take in a game. I know once in a while we have our Twitter crew for the Federal League that will go out and give us those wonderful live look-ins and enjoy some sort of beverage at the respective ballpark that they stop at. And we think that is absolutely awesome. Just adds to the bit here in the Federal League. But yeah, but just being able to have a spot where we can all go that's very uniform. I thought the last website was pretty uniform too, but now you can see some of the logos that are right there, some of those games that are right there that day, to be able to find places where we can go any night and watch a game. I think that's cool. And it's going to look a lot cooler, I think, too, as we're able to put, different options in and things like that. It's really going to be a great addition, and I think it's something more for the fans than anything. But that's cool because we want more fans.
Double down on the appearance of it. I think it looks great. I think it's nice and clean. Hats off to Lars again and all the work that he does sourcing, the companies and the platforms, for our league to be displayed on, let alone all the content that he adds on there. But I know I'm excited about it because those stats become very sortable, so it'll be easier for me to reference league leaders, to call out individual performances. So as long as everyone's doing a great job entering their stats in, it'll be easier to kind of highlight division leaders, league leaders on a weekly basis. So I'm super excited about that portion of it.
I think it's going to be more streamlined for us to put it in as managers too. From what it seems, we'll be able to put them in pretty much from right at the field. So yeah, it's pretty cool, and hats off to Lars and just continuing to make the Federal League a better league each and every year we're out there.
Our league season will close officially on 7/24. No games can be scheduled after July 24th. We are allowing, again, 5 days for makeup games to be performed in, so you can play league games all the way up until July 29th. But we are asking not to schedule anything originally from the 25th through the 29th. That turned out to be great wisdom from Dan Tupper last year to include that because of all the rain that we had last year. I know there's a lot of teams that were very active during that makeup week. So certainly glad that is a feature back on our league schedule.
It's huge, and it's gigantic for so many reasons. And I think last year really, like you mentioned, proved it with the way the weather acted. But at the end of the season, especially when you're looking at us in Burnsville, when both of us are dealing with, first of all, the traffic that you have at Alamagnet. And I realize people love having our AAA there and everything. That's a great setting and a great field, but that also gets a lot of use. It gets a lot of use from numerous teams, organizations throughout the area, not necessarily just Burnsville proper. So, and that was a thing too, that maybe, me looking back at it, in our meeting, I probably should have said, hey, maybe we should get a couple extra days, because even if we have time off, if the weather was okay, we could play a couple of non-conferences. I can call you and say, Stoley, get your A's over to Vets and let's play a scrimmage. You could do something like that, right? I think maybe in the future too, to maybe extend that a little bit if we can. If we can't, I get it. But I think even last year showed that if we get a bad summer, and we run out of time like that. I mean, and we try everything to get on any field available at the busiest time of the year, and it's virtually impossible. So yeah, that's something definitely to talk about, I think, in the future for all of us.
Yeah, it's a relatively short season already. When you're talking 3 months on the calendar to squeeze in 18 games, you encounter some bad weather. You're going to have a whole logistical batch of problems that don't apply when you're trying to reschedule a major league game. And so
Right.
I'm glad that we could highlight that a little bit on here. 5 extra days, will certainly go a long ways, but those are there for a reason. So make sure not to schedule any games in that block in case you need them, because case in point, last year we definitely did. So our last couple of dates on the schedule, then get your stats in by July 31st. That'll ensure all of your playoff eligible players are ready to roll. And then we kick off the postseason on 8/1. There'll be games that Friday night. We haven't seen a bracket yet of what the new AAA, format will look like. I'm told that is coming very soon and will be available on the website. I'm guessing it's just a fairly standard 10-team double elimination. That portion of the competition still exists. It does, it is still a double elimination bracket. So we'll kick off 8/1. By before you know it, it'll be finishing on 8/10, and that'll be in the books. But certainly a lot of games, a lot of baseball between now and then. Before I let you go, I would be remiss if I didn't give you a little bit of a platform to be able to talk about your Hurricanes. I know you guys had a busy offseason, adding a couple of names to an already really talented roster. Tell us a little bit about what's new for you guys this year, and where the expectations might lie.
Well, I talked about the three young bucks, our 35 club, as we're going to call them, coming into the season. That's Andy Otto. He's the younger brother of our captain, our Derek Jeter, if you will, Nate Otto. I'm so excited to have Andy with us. I can't wait to see Nate and Andy play together in the same bench. I know it's happened before at the amateur level before, but never with Nate and I played together with Meesville for a few years, but never was I able to play with Andy. Like I said, I was his radio guy, and that's as close as we've gotten. So we get the brothers. Oh boy, those are two live wired dudes, and for a good reason. And I can't wait to have not only both boys there, but also the Otto family. I mean, the Otto family. Mom, pops. Nessa's sister. Their sister. I mean, they're so cool. They come to all of our games, and if we could give a number one fan out to anybody, it'd be the Otto family. So yeah, Andy's coming. He plays. He's a pitcher, right-handed pitcher. Throws pretty hard. We're going to add him to the stable, and he's going to be fun to watch this year. And he can play really anywhere else in the field. Danny Kiefer, another kid, same class, and he can do just about anything. He probably won't pitch much, but he definitely could throw if we needed him to. Then you got Alex Harrington, and Al is one of the funniest, goofiest, and this is the pot calling the kettle black, right? I mean, he's one of my favorites. He's like my little brother, I mean, he really is. I mean, I've loved this kid since well before he was in high school. I played hockey with his uncle way back in the day, believe it or not, and remembered him from way back then. And then, of course, followed him through playing hockey and baseball at Hastings High School. And he was a star in both sports. He was an all-conference kid, scored plenty of hat tricks on the ice. And he stole a lot of balls down the third baseline, also for the Raiders on the baseball field. He can hit the ball. It's going to be fun to watch Al really swing the bat. I mean, all three of the young guys can hit. We added Fritz Coiro. I mean, I can't believe how lucky our team got that Fritz moved to the east side of the metro. He moved to Hudson. There was no malice. There was no under the table anything. Fritzy and I played in that Tech Mabel 35 plus league, with the Bullies and Billy Hausman and Pat Ralston's team, and got to know each other. And then he and I, have some AB personality things that I think offset each other so well. And I think that's why he and I get along so well. We both love to talk pitching. That's one thing that, I could stand next to Fritzy, talk pitching or 80s rock, for hours on end. So it'll be fun having Fritzy around. He's going to be an innings eater for us. Pfeffer and even Adam Barta to an extent last year ate up a lot of innings. Pfeff in the playoffs was just a Terminator. I mean, that's all you can say about what he did last year. So I'm going to add one more in there. David Franzen, former Augsburg quarterback. He and Taylor Pagel played together at Augsburg, and Dave's not a Hastings guy. I will bite the bullet on this one. He's not a Hastings guy, but I know Pags, and he go way back at Augsburg and are good friends. And, he and Nate Otto spoke very highly. I don't know Dave personally that well yet. I'm trying to get to know him as we move along here, and it's going to be peaches and cream before we know it.
There you go. The Hastings Hurricanes, just one of many teams who are bolstering an already deep roster. Looking forward to seeing, how it all comes together for you guys. Nick, you've got a team event coming up. Talk a little bit about that. April 12th.
April 12th. It's a Saturday afternoon into the early evening, we'll say. We're all 35 plus now. I think that the days of partying till midnight, 2 in the morning are mostly past us. I'm not going to speak for all 800 guys in the league, but for this dad in particular, I like to even end my Saturdays fairly early and efficiently. So 3 to 6 at the Hastings Tavern. It is right south of the Hastings Bridge. So if you're about to go over the bridge, you'll see on the right side kind of the old First National Bank building right there across from City Hall. Big, beautiful City Hall with a big dome. Right across 3rd Street is Hastings Tavern. 3 to 6, $10 pitchers, all sorts of appetizers. We're going to be giving away all sorts of Hurricanes apparel. Kim over at River City Stitch, they handle all of our threads. So shout out to Kim. If you guys ever need anything for your teams, hit me up. I can get you to Prescott. Look as good as we do. Hopefully we play as good as we look. I don't know, but Kim does a great job. So yeah, April 12th, Saturday, 3 to 6. Come hang with us. There's even going to be some meat raffles. Hey, you might as well have it the Hastings way, right? Let's have some meat raffles. Come on down. And we would love to see anybody, even some of those guys from the Minoka Grays that like to come to our games and jorts and all that. We'd even welcome them. So looking forward to seeing everybody.
Should be a great opportunity for some league community and to show support for one of our own. Should be a great time for those who can make it. Nick Tuckner, the head Hurricane, such an absolute pleasure to have you on. Thank you for recapping the league meeting for us. We'll have to do it again sometime.
I'm always here, Stoley. I'm a phone call away, and I'll be here to step in out of the bullpen for you. So let's have a great season, pal. Thanks a ton. Good luck to your A's, man. I love you guys. You know that. If anything, we got to get a scrimmage together here coming up.
Sounds great, Nick. Thanks again for your time. That is all the time we have for our first episode of season 2. Join us next Wednesday for episode 2. We're going to highlight some of the off-season tournaments that occurred since the last Federal League playoffs. We'll go through some of the highlights from the Hickory, from Florida, Arizona, and more. We're going to take a deeper look at the player poll that Lars had put out. I'll be giving my own predictions for MVP, Cy Young, Rookie of the Year. Got some new guests lined up for that you haven't heard from before. Excited to introduce you to those names and faces. And that will lead us right into episode 3, where we're going to do our season preview. We will give a win-loss record for all 34 teams in the Fed. That season opener is just around the corner, kicking off on 4/23. We'll be talking about scores and results before you know it. We'll see you next week.